What better time for a January TBR than over a week into January? I don't know. I couldn't tell you the last time I made a TBR video, probably nearly 10 years ago, but it's a booktube basic and staple for a reason, and I thought it'd be fun to return to basics. Also, I'm currently on a social media break, so I'm absolutely devouring books, which also means that I have an absolutely absurd stack of books next to me. So I've got a lot of things at play right now that are all going to come into this TBR. First of all, I have created a writing semester for myself for the months of January through April. It's inspired by Kate Kavanaugh's videos where she has talked about her writing semesters that she's created for herself. I will leave those linked down in the description. And part of that writing semester is that I've given myself required reading throughout the 4 months. So I have 3 books that I have to read for January. Then another thing I'm trying to tackle this year is reading the oldest books on my physical TBR. So I have like a whole shelf of those set aside that I'm trying to read through. And then also my general just reading mood right now is very heavily into the Agatha Christie, the murder mystery, the dark academia of it all. That is very much my general vibe in January most of the time. So those are all the things that have come into consideration for this TBR that I'm about to share with you. So starting with the 2 books that I've already finished, the first one is The Murder on the Links by Agatha Christie. This is the 2nd book in the Poirot series, and it was a reread for me. Couldn't tell you when I first read this. It's probably on my Goodreads, probably over a decade ago, because I remembered absolutely nothing about this. But it was a fun reread, definitely a very solid Agatha Christie and Poirot novel, like a 3 out of 5. I enjoyed it. I've been doing a massive reread of all the Agatha Christie books I've read, and this one is kind of just solidly in the middle of all of them. And then the next book I've already finished is the first book for my writing semester, which was The Elements of Style by Strunk and White. Definitely some useful information in here, definitely some very outdated information in here, but overall it's kind of considered a requirement for anyone who wants to write, so I figured I needed to put it on my writing semester, and now I have finished it. So since we're already on the writing craft books, the next one that I have to read is Story Genius. That one I have in ebook form. It's kind of an all-encompassing craft book. That'll be the 2nd and 3rd week of January, and the 4th week of January is Bird by Bird, which I think is kind of a more like inspirational writing craft book. Most of the books I've chosen for this writing semester are ones I already had, or ones like this one that are considered kind of staple writing craft books. Moving on to the book that I'm currently reading, that is The City and Its Uncertain Walls by Haruki Murakami. This is Murakami's most recent release. It was published in English back in November. I got it soon after. I started reading it in early December, and I've just been really slow getting through it. I set it down for several weeks, but I picked it back up the other day. I'm currently about 2/3 of the way through. Despite how slow I'm getting through this one, I'm actually really enjoying it. Like with all Murakami novels, it's a little bit difficult to describe what this is about, but there are a lot of staple Murakami elements. There's a man who's kind of searching for his long-lost love. But on top of that typical Murakami style, there's a very distinctive coziness to this book that I'm very much enjoying. I've probably finished this book by the time this video is posted. I'm really enjoying it. And this might be a new favorite Murakami novel for me, depending on how the rest of this goes. I think most people are finding this kind of average, but for some reason I'm really enjoying it. I'm also currently rereading How to Break Up with Your Phone by Catherine Price. This is essentially exactly how it sounds. It's just about how to create a more healthy relationship with your phone, which I think we can all do in the year of our Lord 2025. This year and last year, I've taken the entirety of January off of social media, and I think it might stick this year. I'm really sick of it, so this has really helped me in that. After that, I'm going to be rereading Digital Minimalism. It deals with a lot of the same material, although it's more general than just your phone. While we're on the topic of rereads, one of the things that I've been really wanting to do lately is to reread some of my favorite books and like confirm that I do actually love them, because it's been so long since I've read them. And I've got 2 that I've been wanting to reread really badly recently. The first of which is The Chimes by Anna Smale. This was longlisted for the Booker Prize back in 2015, I think. I read it in 2016. I absolutely fell in love with it. This is a dystopian novel that takes place in a world where people struggle to retain their memories, and music is a form of communication. Its prose is very musical, very lyrical, and I remember just devouring this book and absolutely loving it. And I think I'm gonna read it alongside the audiobook this time, which might be even more of a game changer if there are like musical elements in it. And the other book I want to reread, which you might have been able to guess from the fact that I'm in like a dark academia murder mystery mood, it's The Secret History. I first read this in 2017 after reading and loving If We Were Villains. And since then, I've reread If We Were Villains a couple of times. If We Were Villains has become possibly my favorite standalone novel of all time. And I've never gotten around to rereading The Secret History, and I feel like I need to change that. Because at the time, when I first read them so close together, I really struggled to pick a favorite, and now that so much time has passed, I feel like If We Were Villains is so clearly my favorite that I need to give this one another read. If for some reason you're not aware, this is kind of the quintessential dark academia novel, toxic friendships, absolute chaos and carnage. It's a wild ride. I'm doing so much rereading right now, but it really is cozy season, and that is what cozy season is for, is rereading. These are the last 4 Agatha Christie novels that I have not reread recently. Those are The Body in the Library, which is a Miss Marple, The ABC Murders, which is a Poirot, The Big Four, another Poirot, and The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, another Poirot. I think the most recent read of all of these is this one, which I read in the summer of 2016, so it's been a long time since I've read any of these. This one I remember being my favorite Poirot novel, while this one has always been my least favorite Agatha Christie novel, so we'll see how these rereads go. For a quick rundown, this is kind of a bit of a spy thriller, if I remember correctly. This is often touted as like one of the first serial killer murder mysteries. This one has gone down in history because of its twist, and then this one just has one of the most perfectly succinct titles ever, because who doesn't want to find a body in a library? I mean, technically me in reality, but you get what I mean. And then, as I mentioned in my recent video where I read Halloween Party by Agatha Christie and tried to solve the murder mystery, I have 3 other Agatha Christie mysteries that I have not read and would really like to read and try to solve in video form. This one in many ways mirrors my current situation because we just had a blizzard here and I was stuck inside for several days and could not go anywhere. This one is a closed circle murder mystery where people are snowed in. I hate winter so much in real life, but reading about it is cozy for some reason. Death in the Clouds is a closed circle murder mystery because someone is murdered while they're already in the air, so only the people on the airplane could have done it. Also, this is a Poirot and this is a standalone. And then Cat Among the Pigeons, another Poirot. This is a murder mystery at a girls' boarding school, which is giving me big Nancy Drew Warnings at Waverly Academy vibes, which is one of my favorite cozy games to play in winter. Also, I love a murder mystery set at a school. It's one of my favorite tropes. And then, as if all of those other Agatha Christie books weren't quite enough, I have 2 more that have been on my TBR long enough that they count for books that have been on my TBR the longest. And those 2 are both Poirot novels. Those are Dumb Witness and Murder in the Mews, which is a collection of short stories. So I'm gonna try to get to these 2 as well. We'll see. I might be like all Agatha Christie'd out by that point. So that takes care of all the Agatha Christie. There's so much Agatha Christie. I told you I was in that mood. I also have a couple of Agatha Christie style murder mysteries on my physical TBR, but they're both Japanese murder mysteries. The first of those is the Decagon House Murders. This, I believe, follows a mystery club from a school that goes on a trip, and then they start dying one by one, just like my favorite Agatha Christie novel, And Then There Were None. Now, do I usually enjoy books that are clear knockoffs of And Then There Were None? No. However, am I always willing to try another one because I love that trope so much? Yes, always. Also, this one might be a little bit spooky because it talks about the house possibly being haunted. I'm always here for that. The other one is Murder in the Crooked House, which I think is kind of along a similar vein. There's a group of people at a house. They start dying one by one. I believe it's considered one of the most like classic, iconic Japanese murder mysteries ever. The thing I'm especially excited about though is that this book has like diagrams. It gives me like a character list at the beginning. I love a book that gives me diagrams and character lists. Immediately sold, very excited to get to this one. The next two books are another two that count for my challenge of reading the books that have been on my physical TBR the longest. Those are two Murakami novels, Wind Up Bird Chronicle and Hard Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World. Truly, I don't know how I've owned these two books so long that they've become some of the oldest on my TBR, but that's where we're at. I have a large chunk of Murakami's novels, and these are the two that I am most interested in reading, so I'm excited to get to these sometime soon. I'm not even gonna attempt to explain to you what I think these are about because they're Murakami novels. All I know is that these are two of his more surrealist works. This one is kind of considered to be like his magnum opus, and I usually really enjoy his more surrealist works, so I'm very excited to read these. I'm also going to try to get to Ghost Written by David Mitchell. This is another one that's been on my TBR for the longest. Every time I read the premise of this book, it feels like I'm reading the premise of a Murakami novel, so anytime I'm kind of in the mood for Murakami, this one also piques my interest. Another one that's really piquing my interest right now that's completely unrelated to anything else piquing my interest right now is Kim Ji-young, Born 1982 by Cho Nam-ju. This is a very controversial Korean feminist novel that I think gets pretty dark, and I've had it on my TBR for a while, and for some reason it's just really piquing my interest right now. And then the last few, I promise we're almost done, but I gotta get my dark academia books in here. I've got the All Souls trilogy by Deborah Harkness. This is another one I've had on my physical TBR for a very long time, but also I know that at least partially it takes place in Oxford. I get a lot of like paranormal vampire romance vibes from the premise, and I can't tell how much of this is gonna be like romance and vampires and magic versus dark academia. I'm hoping more of the latter, but I'm kind of getting the vibe it might be more of the former. Maybe it'll just be a 50-50 combo of both. Either way, I've had this for a very long time, and I need to either read it or get rid of it. Also, I'm in the process of planning a return trip to Oxford, so this vibe is just really hitting right now. That's truly kind of why I've really gotten myself into this whole like British Agatha Christie murder mystery dark academia vibe, is because I'm planning a return trip to England, and I'm just very excited about that. And then finally on my TBR, trust me, I know I'm not gonna get through all of these books, but A Girl Can Dream. The last one is another trilogy. This is the Scholomance trilogy, another one that is a combination of some dark academia and some fantasy. This isn't for any challenges, it's just for the vibe. I've had it on my TBR for a while, but I haven't read it because I'm a little hesitant because YA fantasy and I have not been getting along the best for a little while. But this trilogy seems like it's gonna be fun and very dark and twisted, which I'm gonna enjoy if that's the case. So that is my massive January TBR that I probably will not read all of, but I'm very intrigued by everything on this list. Now, being realistic, how much of this do I actually think I'm gonna get through? Maybe half? Definitely these four for sure, as well as Story Genius. Probably these rereads as well. I'm pretty confident in these. Past that, I think my best guess is gonna be one of the Agatha Christie novels I haven't read, one of the Murakami novels I haven't read, and one of the Japanese murder mysteries. Like one a piece of each of those. But who knows? I listen to audiobooks at work and I can absolutely fly through some books if I'm listening to them that way. So I might surprise myself. So that is it for this absolutely absurd and very late January TBR. Given that I'm trying to do some TBRs again, I think I might try to do a wrap up at the end of the month. Back to some like old school, classic, back to basics booktubing. Will I stick to that? We'll see. I'm not going to make any promises, but that is my current hope. So if you are interested to see how many of these books I end up reading and what I think of them at the end of the month, go ahead and subscribe, turn on notifications, all that fun stuff, so you get notified when I post that video. Like the video if you liked it, leave a comment if you're so inclined. Thank you so much for watching this video. Bye!